Hi, I'm Amitai. This is the third stop on my coding tour. We're finishing up on Friday here in Edinburgh at Canon Medical Research. And I was hoping to reflect with a nice set of people here. So introduce yourselves as you go and say your role and what we did together. And just talk about what happened this week and what it was like to have a visiting programmer coming through. So I'm Amitai. I had a fun time. I'll say more later. So who wants to reflect on something, maybe something today that we did? And we can work our way backwards.
What did we do today? We did the strangle pattern. Strangle
Mhm.
pattern. Yeah, that was a good workshop. I really enjoyed it. Um, I'd heard about the pattern before, but not thought about it enough in great detail. And definitely some inspiration for how we can apply it to our quite considerable amount of legacy code that we have.
Yeah, that's the thing. Unlike many of the other sessions, not just from yourself, but most software sessions tend to go from a greenfield angle. We don't have a greenfield here. And so I did really enjoy that for that purposes itself, something that you can apply to existing systems. That was, I found, incredibly relevant.
And that equally, the Gilded Rose activity was, again, it was an awkward code base to work with.
Especially on Monday when it was in a language that you don't mostly program in here.
Exactly.
Sorry for that.
Terrible keyboard.
That too. Yeah, that was like 4 variables all tuned wrong. So I'm glad we did it again on Tuesday. Yeah. What about the Gilded Rose? In particular?
I mean, I guess in some ways, it's because we did it as a big mob and there was a crowd, it kind of highlighted a lot of people different approaches, but then also like how many different ways you can work with the same, well, incomprehensible in some cases code base. How people think maybe sometimes someone would have an idea of how to clarify that more than like in a way that I'd not thought of before, which was also helpful. I think that was most.
We've also adopted some of the vocabulary when we went back to our mob. We immediately started referring to some code as like being like agent breed. That we just shouldn't go near. It's okay if we leave this code here. It doesn't matter if we touch this or not. We know it's awful code. We can just leave it and move on. So it's quite nice to see.
We used some of the principles today. Even we were refactoring some code. We're about to chop out a huge chunk, and then we thought, do we actually need to chop this out to achieve the job that we're doing today? No, we don't.
Mm-hmm.
So we stopped and we made smaller changes, the minimal change we needed to make, and I meant we were more productive. Which was good.
Yeah, that's for me. That's the real story with Gilded Rose. It's easy for any of us who like cleaner code versus dirtier code to start refactoring because we needed to in order to solve the problem, and then lose track of why we started and just keep doing it because it feels nice. It really does. And so I love that exercise for thinking of what's the least testing we can do, what's the least refactoring we can do, and then ship the feature being sure about it. Because that, realistically, with the code that we all live with, is what it's like. We could take several years and refactor forever, but nobody wants that. So how do we decide when to stop? And I like hearing that was useful.
I think for us, when we did mobbing or we started mobbing, but we didn't really know what we were doing, so we spent a lot of time going down rabbit holes, and it took us a long time. I don't think we felt very productive. But since Tuesday, I think you two came in, and today as well, I think we made us 4 times as fast somehow. Like, we have a different way of viewing things or how to approach that. Just extracting methods, for example, already makes the code cleaner, and we felt much more productive.
Yeah, I think my experience sort of before this week was that we were doing stuff, but we often commented how we were getting hung up on particular things, but never actually did anything about it necessarily. And then having you guys join the mobbing session and just sort of say, well, this is how it looks to an outsider, and sometimes you don't realize that. And gave us a nice clear instruction of just like do this, and as soon as we had something to get hold of and focus purely on that one thing, it made it feel a lot better and be more productive.
And we didn't bring any great insight when we visited. It was really just, it seems like a lot of things are going on. What if we narrowed and picked one and saw where that went? Which you may have come to yourself. It's just that we had a fresh set of eyes and we can see what looks like churning, and we can take a guess about why. So
Yeah,
it's
but
sometimes just a visitor.
I think it was also that what you said, like we're maybe trying to make things too perfect.
Yeah.
So by just accepting that we can extract a function and give it a garbled name, or a really really long and awkward name describing really in detail what it does, it might not be perfect, but it certainly gets us a step closer to perfection. So I think accepting that you can do small steps to get to your end result.
And there were a few times today also where we noticed things that we started wanting to fix and then decided to write them down and not do that yet, which I think is amazing. It's good.
I think in general, I often find that having somebody come over, and look at what you're doing. Often, if you're deep in something, you can't see the wood for the trees, and having somebody, with rubber ducking to me, sometimes anybody, just there, it can help you to step back and see the bigger picture. I think it's been useful for that having you here this week.
Yeah, I can just walk in naively and say, "Gosh, what's going on here?" and then you have to think about it one more time, right?
So my take on it is that not only were you someone stepping in and saying my opinions, because you sat in on one of our follow-ups to our retrospective kind of level and had interesting insights, because it's a point of just in general it's nice to have different ways of thinking, and after a while people who spend a lot of time, like most of the core imaging team, we work together. That's for clarification, team Barbie, Sam, and a bunch of others. David, sorry. Sorry. But the point is that if it's just left to us, we tend to get down to, this is a good way to do it. We do a lot of improvements to get to that stage and then plateau or something, but an outsider continually refreshing us, challenging us, saying why do you do it this way, and get that churn back up again is just a useful process, I observe.
I think also in that meeting,
That was the one we were talking about, the whip limit.
the limit meeting, yes. There's a lot of, we all know each other. We've got social interactions that have a long history and will continue to go, and a lot of tussling on that front, not just about the whip limits. And for someone just to come in and say, why don't you just step back and do it as a one month experiment? Then we don't need to work out whether it's a good idea or not. We'll try it. That cut through a lot of the problems we had. That was good.
Yeah, I think so. You all have the advantage, considerable advantage, of knowing how things got to where they are here and what it would take to change them. And I have the temporary but useful advantage of not knowing any of that. So I can just say what seems like it would be a good idea to me, and then we can figure out if the tension between reality and expectation is worth narrowing or not. But and I also have the advantage of visiting many companies, especially recently, where the details of what challenges you face are of course unique to this place, but the patterns of them are not. Everybody has legacy code. Everybody deals with the same challenges, and so the particulars, of course, they're your particulars. But I have practice seeing from a bird's eye view, and I can just sort of give a bird's eye turd dropping, and you can decide if it's valuable or not.
Don't panic for shit.
Sorry about the mess.
I personally was a little bit nervous at the beginning of the week because we were like, oh, we're clearly not doing it right. And that went away quite quickly, and I found it very useful to just figure out these small tips and really help you and make us feel like we're progressing. And that it made a big difference. Finishing the session now, we finished this one task and it's done. And tomorrow we could think about it more and come back and redo it or change it, whatever. But I just kind of pinpoint one thing that was exactly about this week was very useful in that sense. And I feel a little more relaxed maybe about standing in front and driving than I was last week.
Nice.
Even though I didn't do it in the session today. But yeah.
So I'm Mark, I'm a manager, and I didn't participate directly in the deep activities you did. But I really like how you managed to touch so many people with the learning hour every day, and they went deep with these guys. we don't use coaches, and a lot of what you're talking about to me sounds like the advantage of using a coach, the ability to change how people achieve results and like their performance by being a bit of the outsider and being able to call the game a bit for people. So that's really, really nice. I think we'll definitely reflect on that one about maybe using coaching more as a pattern based on really positive stuff.
You've figured out my secret.
Yes.
I'm traveling around
Yes.
visiting companies as a programmer, but professionally back in the States, I'm a consulting coach. And I'm still me, so even though I'm not here for that, I'm still doing things that are like that. And absolutely, it would be a great move. Companies that don't think a coach would help them are usually wrong. And so you're a step ahead. Right. You're a step ahead thinking that.
I think also in the past we've really thought about coaches as process coaches that might come in and help us, or maybe sort of more like interpersonal relationship coaches. Whereas having somebody come in that's just good at writing software and has written in lots of different places and just come in and say these practices are good. You're not doing them like I would maybe think you would be doing them. That's useful.
I think the useful bit was also that you actually came in and sat with us while we were doing what we like, so we could immediately see in 2 hours we went. The first hour we were slow, and the second hour we were much faster by just implementing stuff. Like that was, we came out of that being really, really happy and wanting to carry on with that. So that's immediate effect.
Right, there was the part where you were faster, and there's the part where you felt better about it.
Yeah,
Both.
exactly. But that makes us more likely to actually do it, you
Positive
know?
feedback.
Where
Yeah.
if you just sit here and listen to someone talk and say, this would be great if you did it, and maybe it makes you faster, you'd go like, yeah, maybe.
That sounds like a bird flying by and pooping.
Yes, yes.
But also, when you see a talk, I mean, like with the strangler pattern, that was a useful thing, but I have to now think about how I'm going to apply that in my code. Whereas what we did when we sat in with you, it's like, you don't have to think about it. We literally did it there and then.
It's your code now. Yeah.
Because it can sometimes easily be dismissed as, yeah, we're working on our code base.
Yeah.
Sit that one aside.
I can say a highlight for me, I had heard of the Mobadoro format. My usual practice with mobbing is, we talked about it this morning, how often do we do a retrospective? In a regular Scrum team, it's not mobbing, it could be every 2 weeks, which to me is basically infinitely far away from now, because the things that we can change in the moment are small and they depend on context and being recent and everybody remembering while it was still a problem. And so what I like to do, until maybe now, is any rotation where something was slow or something was a bit off, just do a quick retro on the spot for maybe 20 seconds, 40 seconds. Did everybody notice that? Did I only notice that? Is my feeling about that the same as everyone else's? Should we do something? Okay, let's keep going. And with Mobadoro, it's not up to me, or really to anyone, to remember that it's time to reflect. There's always a built-in time to reflect. And then there's a built-in time to take a break. And so I will probably keep that.
Cool.
Yeah. Anything else? I think we covered a good amount. Yeah. Well, thank you all very much for joining me and sharing your thoughts. And it's been a great week. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Signing off from Edinburgh.
Bye.